The Apache woman said she was too old to have children. The cowboy held her even tighter. The world seemed vast and endless, and yet it often felt lonely. Jack had always been a man who moved from place to place, seeking something he could never quite name, always chasing the horizon, always looking for a reason to stay. As he guided his horse along a narrow dirt trail, he noticed in the distance a small settlement nestled near a bend in the river. Smoke rose lazily from several chimneys, and the faint sound of children laughing drifted across the fields. Jack's horse, tired but steady, carried him closer. He slowed as he approached the settlement, unsure of what reception he would find. The people here were not strangers to the world beyond their home, yet outsiders were always viewed with caution. Jack dismounted and led his horse gently toward the center of the village. The ground was dusty, but it was well trodden from the footsteps of those who lived there. He noticed women tending to gardens, their hands moving skillfully through the soil, planting vegetables and herbs. A group of children chased each other near the river, their laughter echoing across the water. Men worked quietly with tools or repaired fences, their faces lined with sun and toil. It was a peaceful scene, yet it carried a sense of quiet resilience, a life built on hard work and careful attention to the land. Among the villagers, one woman stood out to Jack. She moved with a quiet confidence, her steps measured and her gaze steady. Her hair, dark and long, was streaked with silver, and her eyes held a depth of experience that spoke of years lived fully, yet not without pain. This was Naya. Jack watched her for a moment, admiring the grace in her movements, the way she seemed to belong entirely to the world around her. There was a strength in her, subtle yet undeniable, and a softness that seemed to invite trust. Jack hesitated before approaching. He knew from experience that first impressions mattered, especially in a place where outsiders were often met with suspicion. Yet something about Naya drew him forward. He gave a small, polite nod, and she returned it, her expression neutral but not unfriendly. It was a beginning, a silent acknowledgement of each other's presence. He introduced himself, his voice calm but friendly, explaining that he was a traveler looking for a place to rest and learn about the trails ahead. Naya listened carefully, her expression thoughtful. She had seen many travelers come and go, some respectful, others careless and disruptive. Jack, however, seemed different. There was a sincerity in his tone, a quiet humility that suggested he was not here to take, but to understand. After a brief conversation, she agreed to show him where he could rest and have something to eat. As they walked together toward a small, shaded dwelling, Jack began to notice the details of the settlement, the care in the gardens, the craftsmanship of the buildings, and the way the community worked together to maintain harmony and balance. There was a rhythm here, a steady pulse of life that was comforting in its predictability, yet alive with its own energy. Naya explained some of the traditions of her people, the ways they honored the land, and the importance of family and community. Jack listened intently, absorbing her words not just for their meaning, but for the warmth and pride in her voice. Inside the dwelling, Jack found a simple yet welcoming space. A fire burned in the hearth, casting a warm glow across the room. The smell of fresh bread and herbs filled the air, a comforting scent that reminded him of home, though he had never truly had one. Naya offered him a seat and a meal, and he accepted gratefully. As they ate, they spoke of their lives, each story revealing pieces of their character and past. Jack shared tales of the open range, of winters so harsh that the snow seemed endless, of nights spent under the stars with only the wind for company. Naya spoke of her childhood near the river, of lessons learned from her elders, and of the joys and sorrows that had shaped her into the woman she had become. There was a quiet understanding forming between them, a bond that required no words to define. Jack realized that he was not just seeking shelter from the physical journey, but also from the emotional weariness he carried. Naya, too, seemed to sense this unspoken need. She did not ask him to explain, and he did not feel the need to offer justification. In each other's presence, there was a sense of acceptance and mutual respect. The evening grew darker, and the settlement quieted as families gathered around their own fires. Jack found himself lingering near Naya, drawn by her calm presence and the quiet strength she radiated. She noticed his gaze and offered a small smile, one that was both kind and reserved. It was enough to make him feel welcome, enough to make him feel that, for the first time in a long while, he could rest not just in body, but in spirit. As they sat together, Jack noticed the subtle signs of life that Naya had built around her, small offerings to the spirits of the land, careful tending of plants that had grown for generations, and the way she moved with both grace and purpose. He realized that strength was not always loud or forceful. Sometimes it was quiet, enduring, and deeply rooted, like the ancient trees that lined the riverbank. For the first time in many years, Jack allowed himself to feel something beyond the routine of survival. He felt curiosity, hope, and the fragile beginnings of connection. He could see in Naya a reflection of what he had lost in his own life: the ability to trust, the ability to care, and the ability to be part of something larger than himself. Naya, for her part, noticed the careful attention in Jack's eyes, the genuine interest in her words, and the unspoken promise of protection and understanding. That night, as the stars filled the sky and the settlement settled into quiet slumber, Jack felt a sense of calm he had not known for years. His horse rested outside, the fire in the hearth burned steadily, and Naya sat nearby, her presence a comforting anchor in a world that often felt unpredictable. In that moment, Jack understood that this encounter was more than chance. It was the beginning of a story that neither of them could have predicted, yet both would come to cherish. The first part of their connection was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it carried weight. It was built on respect, shared experiences, and the quiet recognition of mutual longing not for wealth or adventure, but for understanding and companionship. Jack knew that the road ahead would be long and uncertain, but for the first time, he felt that he might not have to travel it alone. Naya, too, sensed the possibility of something new, something steady and enduring, in the presence of this weary cowboy who had wandered into her life. As sleep began to claim him, Jack thought about the days to come, about the stories that would be shared and the silent moments of connection that would define their bond. He felt a flicker of hope, fragile but real, that perhaps life could offer more than wandering and solitude. Perhaps it could offer trust, companionship, and the quiet, enduring warmth of another soul who understood the trials and joys of living fully. The plains outside were vast and silent, but within the small settlement, life continued, quiet, steady, and full of small wonders. And in the heart of it, two people had found a beginning, one that would grow slowly but surely into something neither of them had expected, yet both would come to cherish deeply. Days passed slowly, yet with a sense of quiet rhythm, as Jack settled into life in the settlement. Each morning, he would wake to the soft glow of sunlight spilling across the small room he had been given. The air carried the scent of the river nearby, mingled with the earthy aroma of fresh bread and herbs from Naya's kitchen. The sound of children playing, of animals stirring, and of distant laughter became a gentle soundtrack to his days. Jack had traveled through countless towns and settlements before, but this place felt different. It was not the bustling chaos of the frontier towns he had known, nor the harsh loneliness of the open plains. It was a life that seemed to move at its own pace, guided by care, patience, and connection. Jack quickly became a familiar figure in the settlement. He helped with small chores, mending fences, tending to the animals, and assisting the villagers whenever he could. It was hard work, but there was a satisfaction in it he had not felt in years. He was not just a wanderer passing through. He was part of something, even if only for a little while. The villagers began to accept him, offering small smiles and nods as he passed, recognizing the quiet respect he showed for their way of life. Naya and Jack continued to spend time together, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. They would sit by the river, watching the water ripple and listening to its gentle flow, or walk through the fields as the wind rustled the tall grasses. Jack learned from Naya not just about the land, but about life itself, the importance of patience, the strength found in quiet moments, and the value of observing before acting. Naya, in turn, found in Jack a listener who truly cared, someone who absorbed her stories and memories with a rare attentiveness. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned a deep shade of purple, Jack and Naya sat together near the riverbank. The children had gone inside to eat, and the settlement had quieted to the soft sounds of night. Jack looked at Naya, noticing the thoughtful expression on her face. There was a softness there, but also a hint of sorrow, something unspoken that lingered in her eyes. Naya spoke softly, her voice almost lost in the whisper of the wind. She told Jack about her past, about the life she had lived, and the dreams she had once held. She shared stories of her family, of the joys and challenges of raising children long ago, and of the emptiness she had come to accept in her later years. "I am too old to have children now," she said gently, almost as if testing the words in the air. "That chapter of my life has passed. I have made peace with it." There was no bitterness, no anger, only acceptance and quiet sorrow. Jack reached out, placing a hand on hers. The gesture was simple, yet it carried more meaning than words ever could. He held her tighter, not to take away her sadness, but to share in it, to let her know she was not alone. That night, Jack slept in the small room near hers, yet he found that sleep did not come easily. His mind replayed Naya's words, and he thought about the bond that had begun to form between them. He realized that what he felt for her was more than simple companionship. It was a connection that transcended words, built on understanding, respect, and shared experience. He did not know what the future held, but he knew he wanted to be near her, to protect her, and to offer her the comfort he could provide. Over the following weeks, Jack and Naya's relationship deepened. They spent long hours together, talking, working, and observing the natural world around them. Jack learned to fish from the river, guided by Naya's patient instructions, and she showed him which plants could be used for medicine or cooking. They shared small victories and occasional setbacks, from successfully repairing a broken fence to dealing with an unexpected storm that threatened their crops. Each experience, however small, strengthened the bond between them. Naya's presence became a source of stability for Jack. He had wandered for so long, guided by uncertainty and survival, that the idea of routine and shared responsibility was almost foreign to him. Yet he found comfort in the predictability of her life, in the quiet dignity with which she carried herself, and in the knowledge that he was welcomed into her world not as a guest, but as a participant. Jack's respect for her grew daily, and with it, a deepening admiration for the resilience and wisdom she carried. One afternoon, as they sat beneath the shade of a large oak tree, Naya confided more about her fears and regrets. She spoke of opportunities lost, of family members gone, and of moments she had wished she could relive differently. Jack listened without judgment, his hand resting gently on hers, offering silent reassurance. "We cannot change the past," he said softly. "But we can choose how we live today. We can find meaning in what we have now." Naya looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and surprise. Few people had ever understood her so completely, and even fewer had offered hope without conditions or judgment. Evenings were often spent by the fire, where the two shared stories from their pasts. Jack spoke of the open plains, the towns he had passed through, and the hardships he had faced. Naya shared stories of her youth, of lessons learned from her elders, and of the deep connection her people had to the land. Through these stories, they found common ground. They realized that despite their different backgrounds, they shared the same values: respect, perseverance, and the quiet pursuit of understanding. Over time, the small moments between them became the most meaningful. A shared glance while working in the garden, a quiet laugh at a child's mischief, or the warmth of a hand held in reassurance. All of these moments built a sense of intimacy that neither could ignore. Jack discovered that love did not always have to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was in the quiet acts of care, in the consistency of presence, and in the willingness to understand and support another person fully. One morning, after a night of heavy rain, Jack and Naya walked along the river, their boots sinking slightly into the softened ground. The river ran stronger than usual, carrying leaves and small branches downstream. They paused on a small rise, looking out over the flowing water. Naya spoke of the river as a teacher, saying it reminded her that life, no matter how turbulent, always finds a way to move forward. Jack nodded, feeling the truth in her words. He thought about his own journey, the years of wandering and searching, and realized that perhaps he had been flowing toward this moment all along, just as the river flowed toward the horizon. Their conversations often turned to the future, though cautiously. Naya did not speak of children again, but she allowed herself to imagine a life with Jack by her side, a life of mutual respect, shared work, and quiet companionship. Jack, in turn, allowed himself to imagine being part of her world, not as a savior or a hero, but as someone who cared, someone who was willing to stand with her through the small challenges and joys of daily life. The bond they shared became evident to the other villagers as well. They would see Jack assisting Naya with her tasks, carrying firewood or helping in the garden, and they would smile quietly, recognizing the mutual respect and affection growing between the two. There was no need for grand gestures. Their relationship was built on trust, shared labor, and the subtle understanding that they were there for each other, no matter what. Even in the quiet moments when they were simply sitting together, reading the skies or listening to the wind, Jack and Naya felt the strength of their connection. It was a love that did not depend on the past or the future, on children or grand plans, but on the present moment, fully lived and fully shared. It was a love that offered reassurance, companionship, and the kind of peace that comes from truly seeing another person and being seen in return. As the sun set behind the distant hills, casting long shadows across the river, Jack and Naya sat together on the riverbank. He took her hand, and she allowed him to hold it, not in urgency or need, but in mutual acknowledgement of the bond they shared. In that simple gesture, they found comfort, hope, and the understanding that they could face whatever came next together. Jack had come to the settlement seeking shelter and information, yet he found something far more valuable, a connection that nourished his spirit, a bond that grounded him, and the realization that companionship could be as vital as the air one breathed. Naya had lived her life with quiet dignity, accepting its challenges and joys, yet she discovered in Jack the possibility of shared strength, warmth, and the simple beauty of being understood. The days continued, each one building on the last, each one bringing them closer, not in haste, but in the natural unfolding of trust and care. Jack and Naya had begun to weave their lives together, not with grand declarations, but with quiet attention, gentle patience, and unwavering respect. It was a beginning that neither had expected, yet both came to treasure more deeply with every passing moment. As the weeks turned into months, Jack and Naya's bond grew deeper, shaped by shared experiences, quiet understanding, and mutual respect. Life in the settlement continued with its familiar rhythm, and Jack found that he no longer felt the restless longing that had once defined his existence. He woke each morning to the soft glow of the sun over the plains, to the smell of the river and the scent of herbs and bread, and to the presence of Naya nearby. There was a comfort in this constancy, a sense of belonging he had never known in his years of wandering. Each day brought new challenges, but they faced them together. A sudden summer storm once swept through the settlement, bringing heavy rain and gusts of wind that threatened to destroy the small gardens. Jack worked tirelessly to secure the fences and protect the crops, while Naya guided him, her knowledge of the land and the elements proving invaluable. They moved as a team, anticipating each other's actions without the need for words, finding humor in the minor mishaps, and celebrating their small victories once the storm passed. That night, soaked and exhausted, they sat by the fire, sharing a simple meal and laughter, the tension of the day dissolving in the warmth of companionship. The settlement itself had grown to accept Jack as one of their own. Villagers would nod or greet him warmly as he passed, recognizing not just the work he contributed, but the respect and care he showed for their way of life. Jack, who had always been cautious and wary around others, found a sense of ease in these interactions. He had learned the value of patience, of listening before speaking, and of acting with kindness and consideration. Naya had guided him gently in this, teaching him that true strength was often quiet and consistent rather than loud or forceful. One afternoon, as they walked through a field bordered by tall grasses and wildflowers, Naya spoke of her youth. She told stories of running barefoot along the river, of learning the ways of her people from her elders, and of the dreams she once had for herself and her family. There was a wistfulness in her voice, a trace of longing for what had passed, but also a deep pride in the life she had built. Jack listened attentively, absorbing every word, and when she fell silent, he reached out and gently took her hand. In that simple touch, there was reassurance, warmth, and the promise that she would no longer have to face life's hardships alone. Jack shared his own stories in return. He spoke of the open plains, of towns where he had sought work or refuge, and of nights spent under stars so vast they seemed to swallow him whole. He did not embellish or exaggerate. He spoke truthfully, knowing that Naya valued honesty above all else. She listened without interruption, her eyes reflecting understanding and empathy, and Jack felt a rare sense of being fully seen and accepted. For the first time in years, he did not feel the need to hide any part of himself, knowing that Naya would embrace even his scars and failures. Their companionship was not without its quiet tensions, however. There were moments when Naya's past sorrows or Jack's lingering fears would surface, reminding them that life had not always been kind. But instead of creating distance, these moments drew them closer. They spoke openly about their worries, their regrets, and their hopes, finding strength in vulnerability and trust in shared honesty. Each conversation, each shared silence, became a thread weaving them together, stronger than words alone could create. As the seasons shifted, Jack and Naya began to see the depth of their bond not just in their words or actions, but in the small, everyday moments that defined their life together. A shared meal, a quiet walk along the riverbank, or the simple act of tending the garden side by side became acts of intimacy and connection. Jack learned to notice the way Naya's eyes lit up when she saw the first sprouts of new plants, the gentle rhythm of her hands as she prepared meals, and the warmth of her laughter when the children played near them. Naya, in turn, observed Jack's careful attention to the land, his patience in solving small problems, and the subtle ways he demonstrated care and respect for everyone around him. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Naya and Jack sat together on a low rock near the river. The children had gone inside, and the settlement was quiet except for the sound of water flowing and the occasional bird settling for the night. Naya spoke softly, almost to herself, about the life she had imagined and the life she had lived. "I never thought I would find someone to share this kind of life with," she admitted, her voice barely above the whisper of the wind. Jack turned to her, holding her gaze gently. "You don't have to imagine it anymore," he said. "We have it right here." Jack held Naya tighter that night, not because she asked him to, but because it felt right, a gesture of care, comfort, and commitment. It was an embrace that spoke of belonging, of being present, and of the promise to face life together, whatever it might bring. Life in the settlement continued to offer lessons and opportunities for growth. Jack and Naya faced challenges together, from tending to sick animals to repairing damaged buildings, always finding ways to support one another. Through each experience, their respect for each other deepened. Jack admired Naya's wisdom, her calm strength, and her ability to navigate life's difficulties with grace. Naya, in turn, valued Jack's steady presence, his willingness to learn, and the sincerity with which he approached every task. The two also found joy in the small things. They would watch the sunset over the river, feeling the warmth of the day slowly fade and the promise of a quiet night ahead. They listened to the laughter of children, the songs of birds, and the rustle of leaves in the wind. These simple pleasures, often overlooked in the hustle of daily life, became treasures they shared together, reminders of the beauty and serenity that could be found in the present moment. Jack began to understand that love did not always need to be loud or dramatic. It could exist in shared glances, in helping one another through difficult times, and in the comfort of presence. Naya had taught him that strength and courage often lay in patience, kindness, and the willingness to stand by someone quietly, through life's trials and triumphs alike. And Jack's presence brought Naya a sense of security and warmth she had not felt in years. Over time, their connection became evident to the villagers. People would notice Jack helping Naya carry water, tend the gardens, or repair structures. They would see the quiet understanding in their interactions, the way they moved together naturally, anticipating each other's needs and offering support without a word. These moments were small but powerful, signaling not just affection, but a deep bond rooted in trust, respect, and shared life. One morning after a long winter, Jack and Naya walked along the river, now swollen from melting snow. The landscape had changed, and the air was crisp and fresh. Naya spoke of the land, of how each season brought new life and new challenges, and Jack listened carefully, appreciating her insight and knowledge. He realized that this bond they shared was not only about companionship, but about growth, both personal and together. They learned from each other, supported each other, and strengthened one another in ways neither had expected. Evenings became their time of reflection. Sitting by the fire, they shared stories, thoughts, and dreams. Sometimes they spoke of the past, sometimes of the land, and sometimes of life itself. Their conversations were honest, heartfelt, and full of empathy. Each moment reinforced their understanding that love was not measured by grand gestures, but by consistent care, patience, and unwavering presence. Jack and Naya's days were filled with shared laughter, quiet work, and the joy of being together. They celebrated small achievements, comforted each other in times of sorrow, and slowly but surely wove a life together built on trust, respect, and understanding. Their connection grew stronger with each passing day, proving that love could thrive even in the most unexpected places, and that companionship could provide a kind of joy and fulfillment that neither had thought possible. As the sun set once more, casting its golden glow across the plains, Jack and Naya stood together by the river bank. They held hands, feeling the warmth and strength of one another. In the quiet of the evening, surrounded by the beauty of the natural world and the life they had built together, they understood that what they shared was rare and precious, a love not defined by what was missing, but by what they had: presence, understanding, and a deep, enduring bond. The days continued, each one building upon the last, filled with small moments of connection, shared work, and quiet joy. Jack and Naya had discovered in each other a partnership that transcended words and gestures, a relationship grounded in trust, respect, and genuine care. They had faced challenges, embraced the present, and learned to find happiness in the simple, enduring acts of love and companionship. Through every season, storm, and quiet night, Jack and Naya's connection only deepened. They had built a life together not through urgency or expectation, but through patient, consistent presence and understanding. And in that life, they found the kind of peace, comfort, and joy that both had long sought but never fully known, until they found it in each other. Time moved gently in the settlement as it always had, but for Jack and Naya, each day carried a growing sense of purpose and belonging. What had begun as a cautious companionship had blossomed into something deeper, a bond built on trust, shared experiences, and quiet, steady love. Jack no longer saw life as a series of empty roads to wander. He had found a place and, more importantly, a person with whom he could share it. Naya, too, felt a sense of completeness she had long thought impossible. Life had offered her challenges, loss, and solitude, but now it gave her the gift of companionship and understanding, a partnership that nourished her heart. Mornings in the settlement began with the soft glow of the sun, birds singing in the trees, and the gentle rustling of leaves in the wind. Jack would rise early, helping to start the day with small chores, feeding animals, gathering water, or tending to the garden. Naya joined him, her movements graceful, her knowledge of the land guiding them through each task. They worked side by side, not out of obligation, but out of mutual respect and a shared desire to nurture the life around them. Even the simplest tasks became moments of connection, a shared laugh over spilled water, a hand offered to steady a basket, or a gentle touch that needed no words. Their life together was not without challenges. The frontier demanded hard work and resilience. There were storms that threatened the crops, illnesses among the animals, and occasional misunderstandings within the village. Yet through every trial, Jack and Naya faced challenges as a team. Jack's strength and steadiness complemented Naya's wisdom and careful planning, allowing them to navigate difficulties with grace and patience. Each obstacle strengthened their bond, reminding them that life was not about avoiding hardship, but about facing it together. One afternoon, as the sun poured golden light across the fields, Naya shared with Jack a memory from her youth, a time when she had dreamed of a family, a home filled with laughter and children. She spoke softly, with no bitterness, only a quiet longing that had lingered for years. Jack listened, holding her hand and offering the comfort of presence. "Life has given us different paths," he said gently, "but it has also given us each other, and that is more than enough." Naya looked into his eyes, seeing the truth and sincerity in his words. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to truly feel hope, not for the things she had lost, but for the life they were building together. Evenings were a time of reflection and closeness. They would sit by the fire, listening to the crackle of flames and the gentle sounds of the night. Jack often spoke of the open plains and the adventures he had known, while Naya recounted the wisdom of her elders and the lessons she had learned from the land. These stories were more than entertainment. They were a bridge between their pasts, a way to understand each other more deeply, and a reminder that life's value was found not just in grand achievements, but in shared experiences and understanding. The children of the settlement, who had at first been wary of the quiet cowboy, grew fond of him. Jack would play with them, teach them small skills, or share stories that made them laugh. Naya watched him, noting the gentle patience and kindness he showed, the way he took care without seeking recognition. In Jack's interactions with the children, she saw not only his heart but also the capacity for love and care that went beyond the limitations of age or circumstance. Though they would not have children of their own, the joy of nurturing and guiding these young lives became a shared pleasure, enriching their connection even further. Jack and Naya's love was expressed not in grand gestures, but in quiet acts of care. Jack would bring Naya freshly picked herbs or help mend a piece of her clothing. Naya would prepare his favorite meal or braid his hair back after a long day under the sun. These small moments, repeated day after day, wove a tapestry of intimacy, demonstrating that true love is often found in the steady, patient attention we give to those we care for. Winter came, covering the plains and the settlement in a soft blanket of snow. The cold was harsh, but the warmth of their companionship provided comfort. Jack and Naya would sit by the fire for hours, sharing quiet conversation or simply enjoying each other's presence. They found joy in the small details, the way snowflakes gathered on the branches, the sounds of ice cracking on the river, and the first hints of green that promised the coming spring. In these moments, they understood that life's beauty was found not in grand events, but in the ordinary yet extraordinary details of daily life. As spring approached, The settlement came alive again with growth and renewal. Gardens flourished, animals gave birth, and the river carried the new season's energy across the plains. Jack and Naya worked together in harmony, planning for the months ahead, tending to the land and supporting the village. Their partnership had become a model for others, demonstrating the strength of unity, respect, and shared responsibility. One afternoon, while walking along the riverbank, Jack turned to Naya and spoke quietly. "I used to think life was about moving, searching, and finding something I could never name. But now I understand it's about connection. It's about being here with you and building something that matters." Naya smiled, a warmth in her eyes that reflected her own feelings. "I feel the same," she replied. "Life is not about what we lost or cannot have. It is about what we choose to embrace together." Instead, they focused on the life they were creating, the care they shared, and the quiet joy of presence. Evenings continued to be their time of reflection, laughter, and closeness. They would watch the sunset together, the sky painted in brilliant shades of orange, pink, and purple. The wind would carry the scent of the river and the earth, filling the air with a sense of renewal and peace. In these moments, Jack and Naya felt the fullness of life, the comfort of belonging, and the quiet strength of a love built on patience, trust, and understanding. The village thrived in part because of their example. People saw that true partnership was not always about words or grand displays, but about consistent care, shared responsibility, and mutual respect. Jack and Naya had become a part of the settlement's fabric, their lives intertwined with the land and the people around them. Their presence brought stability, warmth, and a quiet joy that spread beyond their own relationship, touching everyone in the village. As the years went by, Jack and Naya continued to build their life together, embracing each season, challenge, and joy as it came. They had learned that love did not need to be defined by children or conventional expectations. It was enough to be present for each other, to care deeply, and to share the ordinary moments that made life extraordinary. One quiet evening, as they sat together by the fire, Naya rested her head on Jack's shoulder. "I never thought I would find this," she said softly. "A life of peace, of trust, and of being truly seen." Jack held her gently, feeling the warmth of her hand in his. "Neither did I," he replied. "But here we are, and it is more than I could have hoped for." Their love was steady, enduring, and filled with a quiet joy that made every day meaningful. As night fell and the stars appeared above the plains, Jack and Naya sat together, hands intertwined, hearts aligned. The settlement was quiet, the river gently flowing nearby, and the world around them seemed to reflect the peace they had found within. They did not need grand declarations or dramatic events to validate their bond. Their love was present in every touch, every shared glance, every act of care, and every quiet moment they spent together. Jack realized that the journey he had spent so many years on, the endless wandering, the searching, the uncertainty, had led him to this place. And Naya understood that her life, full of challenges and quiet sacrifices, had prepared her to recognize and embrace this love. Together, they had discovered that the true meaning of life lay not in what was missing, but in the connection they chose to create and sustain. The cowboy held the Apache woman tighter, not in desperation, but in gratitude and recognition of the rare and precious bond they shared. It was a love that transcended time, expectations, and the limitations of circumstance. It was a love built on presence, understanding, and a commitment to face life together, whatever it might bring. In the quiet of that night, as the wind whispered through the trees and the stars shone brightly above, Jack and Naya knew they had found something extraordinary. They had discovered a life filled with trust, care, and enduring companionship, a life that was not defined by what they lacked, but by the richness of the love they nurtured every day. And in that life, they found joy, peace, and a deep, unshakable sense of belonging. The plains outside remained vast and untamed, but within the small settlement, two people had built a world of warmth, understanding, and quiet happiness. They had discovered that love is not always about the future we imagine, but about the moments we share, the presence we offer, and the bond we choose to cultivate. And as they held each other, facing whatever the days ahead might bring, they knew that they were home, in each other's hearts, and in the life they had created together.